If you look at a graph of the performance of the U.S. economy over time, it's easy to see what the business press is talking about when they characterize the economy as a roller coaster, the ups and downs of expansions and contractions. Now, in March of 2000, the U.S. economy entered its 110th month of continuous economic expansion. That is, we haven't had a recession in nearly a decade, and some economists are beginning to wonder if maybe the business cycle isn't history. Does it really still explain the way the economy works? Or are we not in some kind of new economy where we won't necessarily have another recession? In order to evaluate this claim, we need to understand two things. First, what do economists think about the way business cycles have worked in the past? And next, what may have changed in the environment that's rendered the business cycle obsolete? Let's think first about the way business cycles have worked in the past. Typically what happens is the economy starts growing, some technological change or new set of markets created by an international trade agreement, and everybody is gearing up to take advantage of the profit-making opportunities. Businesses are building new factories and stocking them with equipment. Consumers are spending on goods and services out of the wealth they're anticipating getting from the stock market or their paychecks, and the government maybe also is spending. So as everyone begins to spend, the economy grows. The multiplier effect. Income leads to more spending, leads to more income. And as business expands, businesses have to hire more labor and to procure more raw materials. Now, all the businesses during this boom are doing the same thing, which means eventually they start depleting the stocks of these productive resources and driving up their prices. That means unemployment gets so low that you've got to start bidding workers away from other companies, and wages begin to rise. Or lumber is in short supply, or oil is in short supply, something, and the price of those commodities begins to rise as well. And eventually these costs of production have to be passed on to your customers in the form of higher prices for goods and services. Then the Fed gets concerned that we're on the verge of inflation, so it takes away the punch bowl. That is, it tightens the money supply, jacks up the interest rate, and everyone gets scared, stops spending, and the economy tips into recession. So there you have it, the business cycle. A boom, the fear of inflation, the Fed acts, and we head into recession. That's the same old story that we've had for years and years and years in the U.S. economy. So what's different today that makes economists think that we're in some kind of new regime? Well, first of all, we have unemployment that is at an extremely low level, 4%, lower than what many people thought was the NAIRU, the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. Typically, by now, the Fed would have blown the whistle on this party. But what's happening is we see very, very little inflation anywhere in the economy. Part of that is due to rapid increases in labor productivity. As offices are stocked with computers, the workers are better trained, they have more tools to work with. The output per worker has been rising rapidly in the last few years. This means that businesses can afford to pay their workers higher wages without creating inflation because the workers are actually producing more. Moreover, on the other side of the picture, businesses are afraid to raise their prices because of globalization and technology. Globalization means that you can always import the product that you're buying right now from some other city or some other country. There are all kinds of people out there producing automobiles and sweaters, and because you can buy from them, your local dealer is afraid to raise his or her price by too much. Technology plays a role in this too, because the internet gives you quick access to price quotes from other dealers around the country, and in some cases around the world. So the internet puts a lid on the price increases that your local dealer can enact, because if the prices get too high, you'll buy your products from some other state or country. So the same thing's true with workers. I want to raise, but if I ask for too much of a wage increase and my cohort does the same thing, then my company will move its production to some other country where the wages are low and the productivity is rising. Globalization creates increased competition, and in an environment with increased competition, workers are afraid to ask for big wage increases, and companies are afraid to enact big price increases. This means that inflation is not especially strong a concern, so the Fed doesn't have to act to take away the punch bowl. That is, we've got low unemployment and the economy is booming. This is like the best possible Phillips curve trade-off imaginable. Usually you think with unemployment this low, inflation would be raging. However, because of globalization and technology, inflation has remained low, so we've got kind of the best of both worlds. Maybe this is some kind of new economy. But we should be careful, because if we buy into this mythology, we might start making mistakes. First of all, if we think inflation is dead, then the Federal Reserve may start to get careless and pump in money to stimulate the economy and satisfy the voters and the housing industry and all those people who like low interest rates. And if they do that, then sure as you're born, we'll have inflation back before you know it. Because inflation is, in the end, also dependent on how tightly the money supply is regulated. Other things that we should be concerned about is making sure that we don't overregulate the economy so that innovation continues and productivity gains are secured and, in fact, advanced by new methods of doing things. We need to keep doing the same stuff that we've been doing for the past few years. An environment in which entrepreneurship is rewarded, in which prices are stable, in which the climate for business is good. In this case, we've got the best possible outcome. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that the business cycle is over. These productivity gains will eventually plateau and reach some new level, at which point they'll become stable. At that point, further increases in demand for labor are likely to push up wages, and when they do, inflation could become a fear again. There are always going to be shortages of labor and raw materials during periods of booms. Oil may be less important to our economy than it used to be. I mean, back in the 1970s and 1980s, an increase in the price of oil could lead to stagflation. Even during a period of unemployment, you could get prices rising because of the supply shock. Nowadays, oil is less important to our economy, but we've seen in recent months that higher prices for oil can lead consumers to change their behavior and can raise the cost of doing business. Just because it's less important doesn't mean it's irrelevant. The new economy is interesting because it's diversified, because it's characterized by rapid increases in productivity, and because globalization creates a very, very competitive environment. But at base, the same rules apply. If you try to run an engine too fast with a limited amount of gas, you're just going to crash somehow. If we try to push our economy too hard without skilled labor to man the jobs and enough resources getting to factories in time, then we're going to have rising costs and inflation. Those rules haven't changed. Right now, we're just really lucky, and we should keep doing the things we can to ensure that productivity and prosperity continues.